We'll take questions.
Yeah, certainly. First and foremost, I want to thank the fans who braved the elements and braved the forecast. I feel like I got an amateur degree in meteorology the last couple of days, and didn't know there were so many websites that predicted weather, but good Lord willing, it held off, and certainly the people that came out, got two great events going on now, the baseball game and the spring game and a bunch of other stuff on campus, and certainly our ex-players, Chris Jones, all the current and, former alumni. I think it was a good day, and we're certainly very excited. And I thought it was in terms of spring games and kind of the format was, I don't want to say disjointed, but what we needed to do based on our numbers at certain positions. I thought we got a lot out of it and walked off the field better than we walked on it. Questions?
Get a mic to you, Paul.
Coach, you kind of mentioned it when you first got here about the number of tight ends you had. Just kind of the spring you thought Spivey had and the depth you have at that position.
Yeah, I mean, with Farad running with the ones, and Dante's a guy that's played some ball and done some nice things in games, and Spivey had a couple nice catches today, and then the guy that's as talented as any of them, was 2 hits and a couple runs scored yesterday. So we mentioned our O-line is being real deep and our linebacking core is being deep and talented, but I think the tight end position is right there with that.
The team captains that you said they're going to be announced after the game. Could you tell us who they are and kind of what your thoughts are on those guys? Yeah,
our thought process for captains is that we named 2 after spring ball, so we can head into summer where it's more player-driven and player-oriented. And saw something online the other day. A coach said, I'm not sure he was from Nebraska, maybe, that bad teams have no leadership, good teams are led by coaches, and great teams are led by players. So we had the vote, and it was an overwhelming majority for both of these guys. It was Darrell Williams for the offense and Errol Thompson for the defense. So I thought, team did a good job. Talked about what the parameters were and how you identify leadership and what they need to do for the team, and had those guys talk to the group afterwards. And I think the team did an excellent job in their selection process, and I think they picked the right 2 guys.
Coach, KT started off a little slow. He was like 2 for 10, but then ended up like 7 of his last 8 passes.
Yeah.
How much for him is just building consistency kind of the next step for him?
Yeah, and that's part of it. And I think I talked to you guys earlier in the week about the spring game being not about plays but about players, and it's kind of vanilla'd up. And there's always 3 components that go into that stat line: the protection, the route, the catch, and the throw. And I think some of them were probably catchable, and maybe we pull those things in. And like anything, it's how you respond to adversity and how you respond to prosperity. And talked about some things in the locker room and came out and finished stronger in the second half. But certainly, as we move forward and the things we talked about addressing last year, and kind of from a historical context of what we need to do, we need to be more efficient and more explosive in the pass game. I think we saw the explosiveness part of it, but we need to still complete a higher percentage of passes.
Defensive tackle was an important position for y'all this spring, given everything you lost there, and then the red shirt that y'all did last year. Where do you feel like y'all are at that position coming out of spring?
I think we're young, but I think we're talented, and then certainly losing Kendall early in the spring didn't help matters. But Lee and Fabian have been running with the ones, and you got Crumity Robinson and Cam Young and some of those other guys, and then got some help on the way with some really talented incoming players. But as we discussed, you lose your 2 starters and then the 3 primary backups behind them. That's a lot of depth. So I think the pieces are in place, but we need to get them a bunch of reps in fall camp and get them ready for SEC play.
You mentioned, I think, last week about Garrett and kind of swimming a little bit out there and stuff. But now that spring is concluded, just how pleased are you with how he developed this spring and just where he's at right now? Yeah,
he and Jalen, and I think you kind of saw a glimpse of what occurred in the spring. That they're incredibly talented. I think the speed of the game is kind of something that they need to get used to. The understanding of the scheme, but he threw that corner ball and the backed up, against the one defense, and threw the hook route in there to Cam Gardner, who had a couple nice plays. But the great thing about those 2 guys is the talent is there. It's the increased understanding of what it takes to succeed at this level from a mental preparation standpoint. But all the 7-on-7 reps they're going to do on their own in the summer, and then everything in fall camp. I think the great news is they can do it. So we just got to get them ready. Talk.
Austin Williams was a guy.
How's he doing? Is he still up?
He's one off the league.
Okay.
Yeah. Austin Williams was a guy you guys talked about a lot heading into last season. Probably didn't have the overall season that he wanted, but he got a couple big red zone touchdowns today. How effective do you think he can continue to be in the red zone and overall as a receiver?
Yeah, he and Dedrick at the slot position, and we have Kazai and Javonte Payton coming in to kind of compete there. But I think they bring kind of two different skill sets. Dedrick's more of a obviously smaller body, shiftier, quicker change of direction, and I think that helps Austin is. He's not as fast, he's not as explosive, his change of direction isn't as good, but he's got a lot of savviness and a lot of understanding of how to run routes and kind of depths and how to set people up. So the challenge for him now is to increase his speed in order to create separation. When he's got time and he's got space and there's kind of air in the zone, that's one of the games you saw that he's been the most effective. But we got to work on him, being able to run away from man coverage, and I think that's where he'll find the most improvement.
Coach, you talked about the other day about the sort of the secondary and linebackers kind of being the older guys in the defense, and obviously they got a couple takeaways today. It's a little cliche, but I mean, how encouraging is that to see them getting on balls and getting in front of guys? Yeah,
for all the great things we did last year defensively, led the SEC in scoring defense in the most statistical categories. The one that Coach Shupin, we've talked about as a staff is increasing the number of turnovers that we produce, and got 2 of those today. And that linebacking core, I'd be hard pressed to find a group that's any deeper in the SEC or in the country with Errol, Willie, Leo, Tim Washington, and if you count the star position with Brian Cole and Shamar Kilby-Lane's really coming on, and that's the thing that's encouraging to me with the amount of junior college players that we take, and some of them were pressed into duty immediately when you maybe like to use a red shirt on them, but the year 2 is when you see a lot of maturation and improvement, and I think Shamar's really, towards the tail end of the spring has really stepped up and played some pretty good football. He and Brule, Watson, Jet Johnson were really deep there.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Have a great day. Appreciate it. Hail State.